Meet Julia, Mary Louisa, Florence, and Jane. That got dark real fast. This piece is called The Daughters of Edward Darley Boit by John Singer Sargent. What began as a simple portrait of his friends' children turned into arguably the most psychologically compelling painting of Sargent's career, a visionary masterpiece that revealed the uncomfortable truths hiding beneath the veil of extravagance and money. It's striking. It's adorable. It's creepy. We're placed in the hall of the Boit family's spacious, shadowy Paris apartment. Our eyes are immediately drawn to the young girl sitting on a blue rug. This is 4-year-old Julia, holding a pink baby doll in her lap. She gazes in our direction as her body turns toward the window. The sunlight streaming in bathes her in a radiant glow, illuminating her eager innocence. Her tiny toes turn inward, as if she's slightly broken a pose she was asked to maintain for the picture. To the left of the painting, Mary Louisa emerges partially veiled by shadows. While physically present, her gaze averts, revealing a sense of inner detachment. The crisp white pinafore she wears accentuates the interplay between the bright light pouring in through the window and the contrasting darkness on the other side of the room. Pinafores were garments children used to wear during play to keep their nice clothes clean underneath. It's believed that Sargent requested the girls wear them so that he could show off his ability to capture light and volume on white fabric. The older sisters stand toward the center of the painting. 12-year-old Jane emerges from the darkness and gazes in our direction with a dazed and bewildered expression on her face. Beside her, 14-year-old Florence casually leans against a Japanese vase that towers over her. Her detached stance suggests that she'd rather be somewhere, anywhere else. She stands out from the rest of the sisters as we only see her in profile. Her focus is fixed on the dark room with mirrors in the background that resembles a black hole. A second matching vase frames the girls to the right of the painting, but is partially cut off, which I have to say is super unsatisfying. The sisters are scattered around the room in a way that evokes a sense of unease. It's as if the boundary between human and inanimate blurs, and the girls become one with the fancy wood floors and deluxe spaces. Sargent introduces us to a world that simultaneously draws us in and alienates us at the same time. This doesn't feel like a home as much as a transient realm, a purgatory of sorts, that echoes both affluence and emotional neglect. While hollow vases take the place of parents, an air of solitude hangs in the balance. Who would request a portrait like this of their children? Sargent was good friends with the parents of the girls, Edward Boit, also known as Ned, and Mary Louisa Boit, also known as Isa. Ned Boit was a Harvard-trained lawyer from Boston. Isa was the only daughter of John Perkins Cushing, a wealthy American sea merchant who made the majority of his millions smuggling opium into China during the early 19th century. A family friend commented on their marriage that it is a great thing for Ned Boit, certainly, this match with Isa Cushing and her millions of golden charms. Writer Henry James described her as always social, always irresponsible, always expansive, always amused and amusing, and eternally juvenile. Isa's inheritance allowed Ned to quit his job and pursue his dream of being a watercolorist, and also enabled the couple to travel extensively throughout Europe before eventually settling in Paris, although they never stayed anywhere very long. When describing Isa's relationship with her children, James wrote, "Poor Mrs. Boit. She has as much business with her daughters as she has with elephants. Her elephants grow bigger and bigger all the while, and she doesn't, but only grows older and sadder, and further away from her happy, laughing, irresponsible years." I'm going to take a step back from 19th century high society to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. No matter where you are in life, you can always grow in your skills, explore new hobbies, or learn tips for maximizing your time. Recently, my focus has been on time management. I've been loving productivity for creators and start your creative career. These classes provide you with the tools and confidence to pursue a creative side hustle or business, or in my case, to maximize my time and grow in my passion for making content for all of you. Whether you're looking for productivity tips or trying to build your own personal brand, Skillshare teachers will take you step by step to help you achieve your goals. If you're one of the first 1,000 people to use my link in the description box below, you'll get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. There are so many courses you can get through before the trial is even up, so it's definitely worth checking out. Thanks Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, while we don't know whether this painting was commissioned by Ned and Isa Boit or a personal request by Sargent, we do know that it's a very bizarre portrait, especially because you can't even see all of the girls' faces. Sargent's visit to Madrid, where he studied Diego Velázquez's masterpiece Las Meninas a few years prior, left a profound impression on him. Inspired by the Spanish master, Sargent decided to create his own modern take on the painting. Similarities can be seen in the spacious, moody room, the dark color palette, and the sensation we get that we're intruding on the subjects. Sargent was also likely inspired by Edgar Degas and the disconnected nature of his subjects. In contrast to conventional Victorian portraits that depicted children as mini versions of their parents, these girls are portrayed as unique individuals. When this painting was displayed in the Paris Salon in 1883, it was controversial to say the least. Critics said the composition was odd and the girls looked like wooden figures. One critic even referred to it as four corners and a void. The daughters traveled a lot with their parents during their childhood, and throughout their many voyages across the Atlantic to New England, the iconic vases journeyed alongside them. Art historian Erica Hirschler describes them as constant symbols of home for the girls. Later in life, the two younger sisters, Julia and Mary Louisa, moved to Newport, Rhode Island. Like her father, Julia became a talented watercolorist, but she never made a career out of it. Perhaps because she inherited enough money that she didn't really have to. Both of the older sisters struggled in their transition to adulthood. During Florence's coming out period, her uncle wrote that she was rude and ungrateful to her mother, and showed an affectation of indifference for all that is interesting to young girls of her age. Florence moved to Boston as an adult and lived with her cousin. She was a golf enthusiast and the first person to introduce the sport to New England in 1892. In the early 1900s, Florence began experiencing mental health issues and was admitted into an institution. She died just 2 years later. On the other hand, Jane's physical and mental health started deteriorating when she was only 18 years old, and she required constant nursing care throughout her life. None of the four girls ever married, which was a little odd, but not entirely uncommon at the time for women of their means. However, their tight-knit social circles, primarily consisting of family members, coupled with the health challenges faced by the older sisters, does make you wonder, could Sargent tell when he created this portrait that something was a little off? If it is true that Sargent possessed an intuitive insight when capturing these girls in paint, perhaps it was because he saw glimpses of his childhood self within them. Like the Boit daughters, John Singer Sargent descended from a wealthy Massachusetts family. Before he was born, his parents went on vacation to Europe and never returned to the US, living solely off their savings and inheritance. As a result, the artist spent many of his formative years traveling across Europe, just like the girls. Sargent was only 26 years old when he created The Daughters of Edward Darley Boit, just 1 year before his infamous Madame X portrait that caused such a scandal in Paris that it forced the artist to flee to London. Nevertheless, Sargent went on to have a wildly successful art career. His exceptional talent for capturing the essence and character of his subjects made him a renowned portrait artist. Much like the Boit daughters, Sargent never married and maintained a limited number of connections beyond his immediate family during his life. He died of a heart attack at the age of 69 with a volume of Voltaire sitting beside him. If you ever go to visit this painting in Boston's Museum of Fine Arts, you'll be greeted with the very vases Sargent studied when he painted this piece in 1882, as they were donated by the Boit heirs and now frame either side of the canvas. When you look at this painting, what do you see? A happy play world of charming children, as Henry James once described it, or the different developmental stages of childhood transitioning to the unknown darkness of adulthood, or a peek into the world of four girls overshadowed by wealthy but absent parents? I think that the many interpretations of this painting reflects our views on childhood, our perception of darkness and stillness, and perhaps even our understanding of our own selves. I think the reason this piece is is the most psychologically compelling painting of Sargent's career is because he masterfully portrays the distinctive personality of each girl, while simultaneously encouraging us to embark on a therapeutic journey of self-reflection by gazing at our own childhood selves. In the words of Voltaire, the mirror is a worthless invention. The only way to truly see yourself is in the reflection of someone else's eyes.